more just our relentless attitude to get better. And that's where you keep pushing, you find this connecting of competing against one another over and over again. As it goes, there's more plays, so the first day, this amount of plays, second, a little bit more, third, a little bit more. So the playbook expands, and you want to see who can stay locked, who can stay in it. There's going to be some mistakes, no doubt about it, but you do want to see who can handle the amount of the install as it goes. So yeah, it'll be a fun 3-day block, one of them that will include padded, and that's a different evaluation for the big guys.
And Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, joined by my co-host here, Michael Hall. Reed is supposed to be coming in here at some point today. We don't know exactly when that is. But Hall, how are you doing, brother? Latest news. Reed is coming back on the same time that Terry McLaurin is, of course.
Yeah. He's a hold in. He's reported, but he's not doing activities yet. But yeah, everything's good. Same old. Sunday. Wish it was the weekend. As always, comes and goes so quickly, but ready to talk some football because we're back, baby.
Yes, and obviously Terry McLaurin came back to the facility yesterday. Dan Quinn was pumped to say that, speaking to reporters, talking about that. And that's something that should have been happening from the start, from the get-go, if we're being perfectly honest with each other. But glad to see that Terry is back, and he is with the team, and being able to at least be there with everybody throughout this process, of course. But the title of tonight's episode is The Boots on the Ground, because we're going to have some fans on here to come on and kind of help us being able to digest what happened today. Today at training camp being the first of padded practice, but also they're having actual fans in attendance.
I don't think they had padded practice today.
They didn't?
I think it starts this upcoming week.
Oh, that's whack.
Yeah,
but neither here nor there.
I thought they would because it was like people were it was like the first day for the fans, so I thought they would have pads on, but nope. I think it's starting up this week.
Yeah, I got you. Now let's get to some questions that I had submitted that I have here listed for you, sir. Who would you say is what's one of the biggest surprises of training camp, you would say?
Surprises of training camp. I would say so far it's that we've heard that Jaden Daniels threw a couple interceptions. But kudos to the defense because I've seen some of the clips and some of the stuff that the people, the boots on the ground, have said that they've been some pretty good, like spectacular catches and interceptions and whatnot. But just going back to last year, like it seemed like Jaden Daniels just had like a flawless training camp. Didn't really throw any interceptions. It was like mistake free, and then we come out in the first couple of days and he's already thrown a couple picks. But yeah, that's really all that's really surprised me so far. I expected well, I'll let you go first. I'll see what you say.
You were supposed to answer it.
I did answer it. That's what surprised me.
For me, I'll say it's Ja'Cory Brooks doing what he's doing. When we originally signed him, I heard the name get popped up, and so I made sure to take a look at his film from Louisville. He obviously was a standout at Louisville. I know that he was originally an Alabama commit, bigger kind of kid, but hands last year at Louisville were definitely a thing, where you kind of noticed it on film that he wouldn't be able to accept or catch in everything that was his way. It wasn't like he was an absolute magnet. But saying that, this week it certainly has seemed like this dude is a magnet for the football, coming out with 2 touchdowns early on in camp, and obviously being without Terry, listed as an ankle injury, and we'll get into that here in a minute here. But it's kind of crazy to see that you could have, before training camp happened, and you're going to say Terry McLaurin's not going to be there, he's not going to participate. Who in here would you say is going to be the standout guy? Who is going to answer the call in Terry? And I'm not sure if Ja'Cory Brooks would have been at the top of everybody's list. Yeah. But that being said, we are now joined by our guest for this episode. It's been a long time since he's been on here, but it's always a good thing to be able to hear the opinions and to be able to see Mr. Ben Standig, and hopefully he's able to get up here very, very soon. I don't see his video yet. Ben, are you there, sir?
I am here. My camera's screwing up. Hold on here. Let me figure out what's going on here.
You're good.
Yeah, going back to what you said, no one would have had Ja'Cory Brooks at the top of their list as far as like a guy that would be the camp standout so far. But well, as we know, every year there's always one guy.
There's always one guy. I know Chris Moore. We talked about it in the spring practices, the mini OTAs and mini camp, that it seemed like everybody was on the same page with Jaden, and Jaden was absolutely connecting with everybody, and so it didn't matter who it was. Somebody else was balling in the wake. But in the meantime, Ben, if you are still there, if you have some time for questions, your camera is not that much important, but if you want to,
it's just us two. And
he had to restart. I'm sure. Sorry, I'm not looking at it. I got the stream up. I got Zoom up. I got OBS up, and also YouTube. So there's so many different variations popping off here. But Ja'Cory Brooks was definitely somebody. Jalen Lane, I know, has been making a mark. Obviously, he was starting out in punt returner, which we all kind of expected coming into this training camp. I think it's very smart by Dan Quinn and company by starting out with no pads, just coming out in shells to start with training camp, just because of the fact of, everyone is coming back from vacay. Everyone is you got to ease everybody into it after the month off. You don't want to force everybody into the pads and hitting right away. So it's very good that they were able to start out the way that they did. I think it's smart by Dan Quinn in doing so. But I'm not going to, no sour grapes on it, you know what I mean? But now we are joined by Mr. Ben Standig. What's up, Ben? Long time no see, sir. How are you doing?
Hey, yeah, it's been a minute. Thanks for having me. Sorry, I just got a new laptop, and I don't know, it didn't want to do video, so went to the phone, but here we are.
Dude, it's all good, Ben. I'm telling you, I updated my laptop like an hour and a half before we started recording, and at 2:30, it was sitting at 19%, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I would have known. But of course, technology will do that to you. But the title of tonight's episode, Ben, is Boots on the Ground. And so my first question to you that I would surmise, we have to get into Terry McLaurin and the opt-in. This kind of development for Terry McLaurin, do you view the horizon to be not far away at this point?
Like, generically speaking, you would think that a hold-in would be optimistic to an extent. I mean, Obviously, when you're holding in, you're not getting fined $50,000 a day, and he just got fined that amount for 4 days on top of what he got fined for back in minicamp when he skipped that. So he's racking up some money there. But I don't know that we're actually signals that we're any closer to a deal. Beyond that, it seems like these two sides are dug in. I'll be honest, I'm surprised that it's reached this point. I've been saying for a while, kind of wake me up when we get to training camp, because typically these things get done.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's not like it's not like the player has a history of being complicated or controversial, and he has been, other than Jaden Daniels, we're talking about the most popular guy, with the fans, who's predates Daniels, as we know. So I'm surprised it's gotten this far, and while I would like to say this signals progress, and maybe it does, at least because they're face to face, I don't know that it actually signals progress at this moment.
Yeah, and he is there now, so like you said, it's a step forward, I guess, if you want to call it that. But is there like a time or like a date where you kind of get worried, or not really worried, but you kind of say, okay, why isn't the deal gotten done yet? Like, is it a couple weeks in the training camp? Is it like do you think he's going to actually miss week 1 of the season if it really comes to that?
Yeah, I had Adam Schefter on my podcast, Last Man Standing, last week. I've lost track of the days anymore because of with training camp here. But I had him on the other day, and he's obviously seen a lot of these things over the years. I was like, tell me what you see here. Does this seem like a garden variety situation, or is this more here than meets the eye? And he was basically like, look, again, kind of using my thing, wake me up when we get to a certain point. For him, it was sort of like the second preseason game. If by that point we're still here, then maybe there's a problem. But Here's how I see this thing. There's a couple layers to this. There's the problem of the playing, right? So at some point, I'm sure Terry is fine. I mean, I'm sure he's been working out this idea that he's gone PUP because of an ankle injury.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny. I mean, I looked it up. He wasn't even on the injury report in the Eagles NFC Championship
No.
game, but I mean, I guess he could have hypothetically injured himself then. But it's been 7 months or whatever it's been since then. So
You could even bring up the early April voluntary workouts that he was involved in as well, Ben.
you could. So yeah, I don't know. But in any event, that aside, I assume he's ready physically. The issue, though, with these types of situations is you're having to discuss this from a way of like kind of downgrading the player, right? Because if in order to say, well, we don't think you are worth X, why? Well, these are some benchmarks that we think that you maybe fall short in, or we think, we understand that certain other receivers may be getting paid this, but we don't see you there. What does that do for not just the relationship with the player, but what does it do for the locker room? And one thing that's interesting, McLaurin, as you guys know, 2 weeks ago, I guess at this point, came out and spoke for about 30 minutes. He was doing a commercial shoot at Eastern Motors. I was there, and he spoke for about 30 minutes afterwards. He was pretty candid. I mean, it went for a lot longer than any of us thought. He was, into it, explaining, hey, I feel this is like a respect thing. It's not exactly about the money, although it's about the money, but it's about what the money represents. And he's feeling like, what else do I need to do here? I've paid my dues. I've put in the time. Now, Peters and Quinn weren't here for all the garbage years that McLaurin had to deal with and all the different quarterbacks, but it happened. We all know it. They know it. So, but at the same time, I kind of partly get where the team's coming from, because maybe age isn't the biggest deal, but he's going to be 30 in September, which, at the age I'm at, 30 sounds great. But from an NFL receiver perspective, it can be a moment where things start to go downhill. I mean, like Art Monk had 2 1,000-yard receiving seasons after the age of 30. Jerry Rice had a bunch of them. Devontae Adams last year. So it's not like it can't happen. But, okay, teams are paying for a future, not what you did. And as good as Terry is, as important as he is, he's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy. He's not necessarily a game breaker the way we may look at other guys around the league, but he's very, very good. And so finding this line of what to pay, it's confusing to me a little bit. And the fact that it's gotten this far in the process is a bit surprising.
Absolutely. And Ben, I can't thank you enough for joining us as always, brother. I know you started your Substack, which we will get into at the end of the interview for you. You'll be able to plug. But you doing this for so many years, I'm sure you're behind John Keim just by a little bit, of course. But what would you say is your standouts so far from training camp, or surprises, whatever have you? But number one, who are the standouts that are really making you look at this thing and say, wow?
I don't know if this is because, I think, look, I have not been doing this as long as John Keim, just to be fair, but I say that not because I'm trying to, make myself seem younger. It's just to say that, when you start doing it for a while, I'm still close enough to when I started covering the team to get excited and worked up about every practice that we see. And I know that fans do, and other younger reporters, no knock. I mean, you got to go through. It's like with anything in life. You go through some things, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is kind of how things work. Right. So until they get pads on, it's hard for me to be like, wow, this looks amazing. Now the defense has clearly been better over time, over these first few days. That's pretty standard, right? Mikey Sanders still had interceptions in the last 2 practices. He's clearly continuing to build on what he did last year. I think the secondary in general to me has been pretty good. But, when you get the pads on, that's when it gets a lot more interesting for the 2 lines, which I think are, other than this Terry McLaurin thing and just Jaden Daniels overall, are probably the most interesting areas on the team. The offensive line, of course, Laramie Tunsil's here, new left tackle. Basically, other than Tyler Biotish, for week 1, they may have 4 different starters out there on the field, or at least 4 guys in different spots. So seeing how that all worked out is a big deal. And then the defensive line, Deron Payne's back, Dorrance Armstrong's back, and then other than that, again, we may have a lot of different changes if we factor in Von Miller, linebacker, edge, whatever you want to say, him being part of that group. They bring in Dietrich Wise. Of course, Javon Kinlaw was the big signing of the offseason. So I really want to see what that group looks like. And also, this applies to the run game, right? Because even when they put up pads, you're not tackling them. I can't wait to see Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt get out there and in preseason and show what he can do. I'm not fully aware of all that he can do, but from what I have seen and knowing what this team needs, I think he could potentially have a role, maybe even a significant one, but a little probably too early to anoint that. So I think those are just some of the guys that have stood out. But, as we get a little bit further here into practice, I think some more names will stand out. I'll say this. I'm sure I'll be wrong. I was debating doing like a 53 week 1 projection, 53 player. I feel like if I do it right now, I don't know I'm going to change anything before the season starts. I know that's stupid, and I will, but right now it feels like, I kind of feel like I know what it is, and it's odd in that regard, but that's kind of where I feel like with this team right now.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a while since it's been like mostly a lock for the roster, and it's like you're basically just kind of the last like 8 to 10 guys on the roster are kind of like working for those like last couple spots. But like you said, I know obviously it's still early. They haven't put the pads on yet. And going back to last year, there was a lot of impactful rookies like Sam Still, Brandon Coleman, obviously Jaden Daniels. And who do you think, like if you had to make a guess right now, like out of the rookies that were drafted this year, come week 1, like that guy's going to make an impact for us come week 1?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Trey Amos is probably the best bet, back in the way back in the OTAs and mini camps a couple months ago. He certainly looked the part, and I've been hesitant to go too crazy here because I said a lot of decent things about Emmanuel Forbes a couple years ago, and obviously that didn't work out. Now
it's okay, man. Just throw salt over your shoulder. It's all good.
Well, look, and admittedly, there were some Emmanuel Forbes' size was a concern off the bat, right?
Yeah.
We don't have that issue here. Trey Amos has physically got the size, got a good build, he's got the speed. It's just a matter now of general rookie cornerback stuff. I think he's probably going to start, would be my guess, opposite Marshawn Lattimore. Again, I think that he looks confident. When you're out at practice, though, and there's no Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown's been limited, the corners are going up against Luke McCaffrey, Chris Moore, and some others. It's not the same type of challenge you're going to get. But nonetheless, I would probably say him. I think Jalen Lane is the front runner for me as the punt returner. He had a big catch today in practice, but overall, I think he's receiving. I'm sort of a work in progress as far as I'm looking at it. But I would say. And I didn't mention, of course, the first-round pick, Josh Connor. Like, he's just a young 21 years old. That doesn't mean he can't start. But you have Andrew Wiley, who at the start of the last 2 years, it wouldn't stun me if Wiley ends up starting week 1, or they do that sort of rotation deal they did last year between Coleman and Lucas. So, I'll put Amos, though, as the rookie to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I know David Harrison from Locked On brought that up, saying that they could use that flipping of Wiley and Connerly to start out the year. Obviously, that benefited Brandon Coleman because I know that in his last press conference, he kind of talked about the speed of the game, and definitely towards the end of the year, the speed actually was matching up and slowing a little bit down for him, which is great to hear. But this season, Washington has added a new kicker. So, new kicker, who dis? So I wanted to talk to you about Matt Gay and how he's done so far at training camp and the small sample size you've gotten so far.
Yeah, definitely a small sample size for sure. I mean, I think the deal. Look, we all know what happened last year, and it was not that fun. I mean, it was entertaining to a degree, but it wasn't fun. It's certainly not.
It started out chaotically in the off season, and definitely during the season, it was the same thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I don't want to diss Austin Seibert and Gonzalez and some of the other guys, but. Yeah, I mean, they wanted to get a more stable guy. Now, Matt Gay has been that guy. 2 years ago, he was signed by the Colts to the largest free agent contract ever for a kicker because he had been so successful during his stint with the Rams, not just overall accuracy, but from deep. Whatever happened with Indianapolis, things went sideways. He only was hitting on 50% of his kicks from beyond 50, and the percentage dropped overall. And so, he's making good money. The Colts said, hey, we're going to have to move on from there. I get a sense, though, that he is generally still viewed as one of the, if I say better kickers, I'm not necessarily saying top 5 or 10, but maybe. I mean, he at least has that potential because of what we have seen. Kickers can be a weird bunch. They're kind of like middle relievers in baseball or relief pitchers in baseball. Year to year, stability is not always in the cards, but I think they think from a leg perspective, he's going to give them more confidence to be able to take shots from 50 plus rather than thinking we need to, go for it on fourth and a decent size distance. So, look, if he can make all the extra points, make everything inside of 50 more or less, great start. And then if he does give them that, more consistency from deep, then that goes a long way. So far so good, but kicking in practice is obviously a lot different than kicking in the games.
My man. And to wrap this up, Ben, I know you don't have much time. You got to write on the Terry situation, but only a couple more questions for you. We could do rapid fire if you'd like, sir. But I wanted to ask you in regards to Von Miller and his impact so far, just from the little bit you've been able to see from him on the field. Of course, you got to be able to speak with him and off the field at his presser this week. But on the field, what are you noticing?
Yeah, and we got a little more time than I thought when I talked to you earlier. Well, again, similar with the defensive line, what I said before about the line play, until there's pads on, until there's more real game action, it's kind of hard to say. But we know who he is. Last year, if you just look at the raw numbers, he had 6 sacks. You might be like, well, okay, that's less than Dante Fowler. It's not a big number. What are we talking about? Yeah, we get the career, but is that a lot? Well, but then you look at it, he played less than like 34% of the snaps last year for the Bills. And when you look at his total number of pass rush attempts and then his win rate from that, he was a top 10 edge rusher last year. And the other guys in the top 10 are all the guys you would say are the best pass rushers in the league right now. So on a pure play-to-play basis, Von Miller is still pretty good. I asked him the other day, how's he become so efficient as a pass rusher, considering he's playing fewer snaps? And he's like, well, yeah, I don't have the time anymore to set up an offensive tackle or get a read for what the tackle is good or weak at. Now it's just like I'm a basketball player coming in off the bench. You give me the ball, I'm shooting a 3. There's no dribbling. I mean, there's no passing. We're not running a play. I'm just going to shoot. And I think that's what they're going to get out of him. And that's okay. I think they needed that type of designated pass rusher. In theory, they've got a lot of beef inside at the tackle spot. They add Dietrich Wise to give them more of a run stopper on the edge, although he could still get after the quarterback. They've got depth. What they were lacking is the upside. And it's hard to say that the 36-year-old is the upside play, but in terms of getting after the quarterback, it probably is the case. And, it's going to be between having him and Bobby Wagner around. If you're a defensive player and you are not picking their brain to how they've been successful in this league and stayed around, I don't know what you're doing. You don't have to go to Canton in a few years to talk to them or to see information about them. They're right there. Go talk to them. And I suspect a lot of guys are going to do just that. So I think having a player like that, a been there, done that guy, is going to go a long way. And like I said, if he's able to, in the second half of games, be fresh enough to get after the quarterbacks, that's going to be a big help for a team that, yeah, they had a decent amount of sacks last year, but I think, I never really felt like they had some great pass rush, and having Von Miller should help that.
Absolutely. Hall, do you have another one for Ben, given that you just had a little bit more time?
So everyone just kind of assumes, like, oh, we know what the offense is going to be. They've upgraded the line. They've added Debo, like the weapons. Obviously, Terry should be out there because he's still under contract. But a lot of the questions I've seen from, like, Mina Kimes and people like that have been, is Cliff Kingsbury actually going to evolve this offense or expand his playbook? Do you see the offense kind of evolving and getting better this year, or do you see it kind of, I guess, hitting the cliff, as people call it?
Oh, the cliff. Yeah, I mean, a couple things, I guess, on that. One, last year when there was a midway through the season when they lost 3 in a row, there was the cliff conversation came up, and I'd heard about it, had not really dug into it, and when I started to look into it, there's always circumstances. There seem to be a lot of circumstances out of his control, whether it's injuries or he's coaching a Texas Tech team that was just not that great in talent relative to other Big 12 teams. And, with the Cardinals, DeAndre Hopkins gets hurt one year, Kyler Murray gets hurt, and there's always seemed to be something that led to that. In this case, look, one of the big questions is obviously how our defense is going to adjust to Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury now having seen them together for a year.
Right.
I think it's a fair question, without a doubt. But when I've asked about that, the answer I get, whether it's from Kingsbury or Quinn or others, is, well, we didn't show every play last year. Like, we didn't do everything we think we can do with Jaden Daniels. We had to adapt to the scenario, which included a rookie quarterback, right? And now it's year 2. We both have had a chance to see what teams are looking to show us. Bobby Wagner, this came up the other day with him, and he was like, that year going up against NFL defenses obviously is much bigger. It's a pretty big transition from college, where college defenses are
right,
not exactly the most robust at times, especially in this era of college football. And that based on that experience, Wagner said he thinks Daniels can take a big leap this year. A big leap would be pretty terrifying. That's if I'm a defense.
MVP territory right there.
Right. But even if it's just, hey, Jaden Daniels, do what you did last year, at a minimum, that's pretty good too. So I think that, look, got to give them the benefit of the doubt in a lot of circumstances because of the success last year. And that includes, for me, what Cliff Kingsbury is ultimately going to show here now in year 2, and see how he thinks defenses are going to adjust to him and Jaden, and make the adjustments accordingly.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love to hear that. But only a couple more for you, brother. I know you got to get out of here. But I wanted to ask you about the second-year guys. Obviously, Johnny Newton, Jaden Daniels, we could talk at length about, of course. But, you got Luke McCaffrey and others. Jordan McGee has been a name that a lot of people have brought up. Mikey Samerstill, of course. But from that whole crop of the second-year guys, who's somebody that's really standing out to you?
Well, I mentioned Samerstill. I mean, like that's other than Jaden Daniels, he was obviously the star of that group a year ago.
Yeah.
I don't know that necessarily like Ben Sinnott, Luke McCaffrey are standing out in the sense of like, wow, they're unstoppable in practice or things like that.
Right.
But, when you ask questions and talk to people, it sounds like there's a belief that both of those guys, have improved on what happened to them last year. I think Sinnott is such an interesting one. I feel like people are disappointed as a second-round pick that he didn't do more last year, and I get it, but I guess the issue is tell me what they were going to do. Zach Ertz didn't miss a game, which surprised us all, but he didn't. And John Bates also did miss a game, but he's the blocker anyway, so that's not really affecting Sinnott too much. Are you going to go a lot of 3 tight ends? I mean, I don't necessarily think so, but hey, look, if he improves enough for them to think we got to get him on the field no matter what, maybe. So unless Ertz is hurt, I don't know that Sinnott's going to get more work than he did. I mean, maybe some, just, but not like, I don't see that he's all of a sudden going to get 65% of the snaps or things like that. But, the question is, should Ertz, get hurt? Is he ready to go? There seems to be more of an optimistic belief that he can not be as quality as Zach Ertz, who's obviously one of the best at getting open, but in terms of just being a reliable target, I can't talk, a decent route runner, improving on those skills. He had a diving catch in the end zone in Friday's practice, and a lot of guys on the sideline were pretty pumped up about that. So, I think with him and to some degree with McCaffrey, it's just, let's see what they do over this training camp. What strides do they make? If Adam Peters is right and where they drafted them last year, then I think both these guys should be contributors. And certainly in the case of McCaffrey, he's going to have a lot of opportunity here in camp until Terry shows up.
Absolutely. And then, Ben, it's kind of hard for you to be able to gauge. I know it's like with a year's difference, it's hard to be able to do so. But with Jaden Daniels, the difference in him in the first week or 2 weeks of camp contrast to last year, is there anything that comes to mind in just how he's orchestrating himself?
When the dust settled after the season and you're sitting there going, okay, what do I think? What do I need to consider for this offseason? And usually, like if Sam Howell had been back for year 2, we'd have been like, okay, he's got to get rid of the ball quicker out of the pocket to avoid sacks. He's got to avoid taking big hits, whatever. Most quarterbacks, I think, there's there's big topics you can point to. And with Jaden Daniels, it's kind of like, wait a minute. I don't want to say he's perfect by any stretch, and I don't want to say that there's nothing to work on, because even Tom Brady, at the final years of his career, is still trying to find ways to improve. But there was just nothing that dramatic. And he even Jaden talked about the fact that like he primarily spent the offseason working on like his footwork and trying to know when he's got to get in or out of the pocket, how to avoid getting hit at times, keeping his head up the field. That's all important stuff, but it's not, wow, look, he's really changed this. He was so good last year, both on the field, but also the mental game, which is, of course, one of the big reasons why I think he had so much success last year. He stays level. He gets into the building, as we know, as early as anybody. So I don't know that I'm noticing anything different. Maybe there's some subtle things happening in the huddle, or that the coaching staff will share later. But just watching it, if I say it looks the same, I say that as a compliment. I don't say that as a negative. It's just because last year he was so advanced, and we just maybe didn't appreciate everything in real time.
I totally agree with you there, and it's a fresh breath of air. Who would have? It's like that one meme or GIF of that guy Zach, but
Paul Rudd.
Yeah, Paul Rudd saying, who would have thought? Not me. But Ben, now that we're into training camp, and with this football team, I've said this many times, that it's not Super Bowl or bust, but you got to get back to where you were last year. And with the upgraded schedule and difficulty, you could say it, versus quarterbacks and versus teams, with Laramie Tunsil and Deebo Samuel added to the equation, what's the first thing that comes to mind with those two players after a week of camp?
Yeah, I mean, with Deebo, again, it's almost, I don't want to keep giving a cop out and say we need to see more time. But ironically, even with Deebo, a receiver, I think we need to see more, because what's his biggest strength? I think his biggest strength is probably his yards after the catch ability, his ability to get the ball, be a power runner as a receiver, and make those plays. Well, again, there's no tackling happening here right now, so we're not really seeing that guy. Now, that said, he's been moved around the formation. They're using him in different areas, so you can see the versatility and the yards after the catch thing. If he's able to do what he's done at points in his San Francisco career, not last year when it was a bit of a down year, but at other points, then I think he could be a big upgrade. He's just also not a traditional outside receiver, so missing Terry and Noah Brown missing time doesn't really change Deebo Samuel's usage. But again, let's go a little bit further here into the summer. See what we can see. Tunsil is kind of the same deal. I mean, I think in that, again, offensive line, I'm not going to see the full effect, but the confidence that comes with having that guy at left tackle, a guy, a 5-time Pro Bowler, considered one of the best pass blockers in the league. That's got to make everybody feel good, including Daniels. And we saw this over the years here when Trent Williams was here, or when some of the other legendary left tackles that they have. If you have that one stud, it kind of, the success can trickle down across the line. You don't have to send a double team to that spot. You can have a tight end if you want now help out. Maybe it's at right tackle to help a rookie Connerly, or maybe it's inside, where you've got Brandon Coleman switching positions. So it's just having now that player can go somewhere else, or not even at all. Like maybe they don't even need to have a tight end or a running back chip. Now you can send that guy out into the coverage. So it's sort of, into the pattern. So now it's a trickle down effect in that regard, and a lot of it stems from the belief in what you have at that tackle spot. So we haven't talked much about Tunsil from a bigger picture perspective. Like, he's got 2 years left in his deal. Is he going to get a new contract? And I haven't heard anything about that, and we got one contract to deal with. That's enough.
Don't do that to me, Ben. Don't do it to me.
No, but I'm just saying that, like, from the perspective of, like, if he shows that, hey, he is worth everything that they gave up to get him, worth the salary, worth to the offense, because what I just said, that the trickle down effect, then he's probably going to be in line for another deal, whether it's at the end of the year or not. And that's what we'll see. I guess the one thing I wonder, and I have to keep wondering, is Houston, bad offensive line last year, decided they were going to trade him. And I know that they, whatever, they got their own things going on and they made some other moves. but they've got their own young quarterback in Stroud. So why did they decide they were cool giving up this guy to be the blindside protector for their young quarterback? That's a little curious, and that's why I'm like not 100% all in on this, but I'm mostly there because of the success he's had in his career.
My man. Last one. I know you got to get out of here, but Marshawn Lattimore, what have you seen thus far in contrast to late last season?
Yeah, I mean, look, he clearly looks like a healthier guy, a lot of confidence. I don't want to say I felt bad for him last year because, he's getting paid a lot of money. It's not like it's
right.
This is what he's there for. But obviously he was hurt. He still went out there anyway in the playoffs, and we'll say that it was the injury that kept him from keeping up with Mike Evans and AJ Brown in those games. And I thought he came in a bit humble to minicamp, which is a good sign. It wasn't like he came in and was acting like, I was good. No big deal. Heck with those guys, whatever. He was like, yeah, no, I got to do better. If I'm out, I've hurt or not, if I'm out there, I have to do better. So he has looked the part so far, but again, no Terry. It's early, all that kind of stuff. But so far, so good. The key is going to be, how long is he going to be able to stay healthy through the summer, through the first part of the season, all through the season. It wasn't just last year he was hurt. He's been hurt in very off and on the last 3 years. And your best your best skill is being available. And if he's available, great. So far, so good. Obviously, we'll see what happens.
My man. And Ben, I'm sorry about halfway through saying could. That was a really loud thunder that just ran through here. Obviously, lightning was close by. But before you get out of here, Ben, if you'd just like to plug your show, just in case anyone watching hasn't watched it or listened yet, but also your Substack, so we could come find your work, sir.
Yeah, no, the thunder was legit. I mean, I live in Maryland, but they kicked us out of the media area in Ashburn earlier because thunder and lightning was in the area. So
okay.
I don't know where you are, but yeah, it was legit. Coming home, driving home, there was floods kind of everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, Last Man Standing. That's been the name of my podcast now for a bit. You can find that wherever you find this podcast and others. The Substack, also called Last Man Standing. It's where I've taken my Washington Commanders written coverage. Look, it's you guys are your own bosses doing this, right? I presume, and there's security that comes with flying under somebody else's flag and then paying you for your services, but it also comes with strings attached, i.e., you're not really fully control everything you're doing. Now I am, and now I get to run this thing as I see fit. If you followed me at The Athletic or just my work overall, it's going to be a lot of the same coverage, which is to say, I'm not afraid to throw in opinions, but it's based on some form of reality. It's not just hot takes because I'm trying to get on TV with Stephen A. And, it's also about building a community. And, it's been great. I haven't shared this with anybody yet, but I opened up the Substack on Tuesday. We've already hit 1,000 subscribers.
Nice. Congrats.
In just a few days. I appreciate that. So it's going great so far. And, I would love for everybody to come by. So it's lastmanstandig.substack.com/subscribe. There you can join for free if you want initially, but also, of course, annual and monthly memberships. And I think you told me this is going to go up today. There's a discounted rate right now through Monday. So if you are inclined, take a look, and would love to have you on board.
Yeah, actually, we're live streaming at the moment, Ben, because somebody had commented on last week saying that when they replied, because we do a premiere typically, we record, upload as a premiere, and so they think that they're responding and asking questions to us, when in reality, like, we have already recorded it and we can't answer them. So I thought today would be a good day to go live, just in case anybody does have those questions, we can answer them. But Ben, I can't thank you enough for your time. It has been a long time, and it was worth the wait. So to speak.
Definitely.
God bless you, and I'm happy to hear that you are going down your own venture, doing this alone. I know that you've been doing this long enough to where you have the confidence to be able to be self-sustainable, and I hope that you continue on that trend because you don't need the strings attached, so to speak. But I can't thank you enough, brother, and I hope you have a great, fantastic week and you continue kicking butt at training camp.
No, I appreciate it. I look forward to catching up sooner. We don't wait as long until next time. And I look forward to it. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
have a great day, Ben. Appreciate you. All right, everybody, we just spoke with the man, Mr. Ben Standig. I'm getting destroyed by these flies. This is
Dog, I had the
actually
biggest mosquito just like hovering over. Like I could hear it like zzz in my ear, like while he's talking. I'm like,
dude,
it sounds tearing up my neck. I'm like, oh my god.
well, dude, I got these like little fly trap things around here, and like for some reason these guys just don't want to go onto them. And like, but the thing is, I live down here around chicken farms, and so it's a
Oh
lot
yeah.
different. But to wrap this up, brother, we got some questions that we can answer from our fan base, of course. And this first one was submitted by our guy James Bonato Paul. One of the many scenarios I've heard on possible outcomes of the McLaurin situation is to have him play out his existing contract for this year and then franchise tag him for the following year. At face value, this might not sit well with a player being franchise tagged. Is there any data out there on players' reaction on being tagged as far as their performance and or locker room attitude?
Um, I'm sure there's some type of data out there. If you just listen to podcasts, interviews with players, watch any of the screaming shows, NFL Network, stuff like that, the players will tell you that they don't like getting the franchise tag because they like the long-term security as opposed to like the 1 year, just the 1 year security. Like, so yeah, that's definitely an outcome that could happen. I would say to that, like people keep bringing that up, which it's definitely an outcome because we want Terry around here while the window is wide open in Jaden Daniels' rookie contract. But if the discrepancy right now, say it's they don't want to give him $30 million or whatever the number may be, if the franchise tag is going to be 30 plus million next year or 30 million or whatever it is next year, if they don't want to give him 30 this year, I don't think they're going to want to give him 30 next year when he's a year older. Again, it's a 1 year deal, and we know that Adam Peters and Dan Quinn have no problem giving out 1 year deals to guys that are over 30, like Von Miller, Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner,
Right.
guys like that. So yeah, I'm just hoping that they get like a 2-3 year deal, or a 2 year deal, whatever it may be done. But yeah, like you said, I think the franchise tag next year, people have said is going to be 30, maybe 31, $30.5 million. And if they don't want to give him 30 now, who's to say they're going to want to give him 30 next year as well? So we'll see.
Yeah, like for me personally, James, the big difference between Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner is they're more towards like their literal end of their career. And so for them, it's like they're just buying in for that year to they're ring chasing, so to speak. With Terry, it's a little bit different, where Terry does have a last, and he's trying to get as much as squeeze out of it as possible, right? And so for Terry, it would be kind of hard for Terry in the sense that if he were be franchise tagged, he doesn't know if he's in their vision long term. And so, how much is he going to buy in? Is he going to be looking 1 foot out the door, ready to make that move to the next team? And so, I think the franchise tag would be the wrong precedent to send, especially in Terry McLaurin's case, just because of where he is in his career and not knowing what's going to happen for the next couple of years. Obviously, you love the idea of franchise tagging, but ever since the Kirk Cousins saga, I don't want the franchise tag to be even considered an option. Now we are joined by our next guest, great friend of this show, Mr. Deuce, who was boots on the ground today in training camp for the first fans being allowed at training camp. How you doing, brother?
Good. Can y'all hear me okay?
I could hear you all right. If you want to turn it up just a little bit more to hear your voice, I'm so used to it at this point. Yeah, but I was doing with Deuce. It was his show that we would do the pre-draft evals and going through each player breakdown. So if you're not familiar with Deuce already, make sure that you do. But Deuce, I wanted to get your reaction today to training camp. Just a couple words that come to mind.
Energy, right? Energy, excitement. And it's a combination. To me, is the energy and excitement not just from the fans, separately the players, the media, but it's like everyone. Like everyone is excited. Everyone has energy. And I think those are the couple words that I have, especially for what we saw today and what we've been hearing about over the past week.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you were able to go. I know that there were a lot of people there. We didn't know that it was Nikki Giabala's last
Yeah, that
day.
was crazy, right? I
Yeah.
should drop that.
You said that in the little tweet at the end of the tweet. I'm like, what?
That was very Commanders of her to keep that under the vest until literally the day it happened, right? It's like the Tunsil
Right.
trade all over again. which is unfortunate for Nikki, of course. But Deuce, if you want to answer some fan questions with us, this one was submitted by the Colonel. His question is, Deuce, there's still a long way to go before the season opener, but a friend of the show, Zach Selby, is already making noise that Trey Amos, the team's second-round pick in this year's draft, has spent most of his time with the starting defense and locked down several of the team's receivers. Selby believes that right now it's Trey Amos' job to lose. If so, and if Marshawn Lattimore gets back to his old self, just how good is our cornerback duo going to be?
Great. A trio, right? Today's NFL, you need three of them. And I think we can have three of them. And a lot of it hinges on, the rookie being able to adjust. Cornerback is one of the hardest positions to learn coming out of college. But if Marshawn can get to 85% of his old top 5 self, I think we're in a great position. And when it comes to Mikey, like, we saw the self-correction. We saw how he got better from week 1, and being just thrown out there to the dogs against, as some say, the best wide receiver in the NFL, week 3 against Jamar Chase, and how he self-corrected and he got better throughout the year. I still believe he'll have a high ceiling at cornerback, but I think his ceiling is higher at slot because he can do so many different things. And one of those things is being able to put pressure on a quarterback in different packages.
Yeah, and going back to his senior year in Michigan, one of the highlights of Mikey, because we knew early on in his Michigan career he was a wide receiver. He transitioned to corner for his last year before being drafted by us. But in that short sample time of him being at corner from being on offense, he was communicating with the other guys. And Dan Quinn had highlighted this in his press conference, saying that the interior corners were doing a great job of communicating. Well, I wonder who that was. It points to Mikey Sanders still being there. But I would also add, Colonel, that yes, of course, if Marshawn balls out, of course, if Trey Amos continues to do well here in camp, I'd be willing to argue that it's not just them, right? They re-signed Noah Igbenogany, and last season they were top 5 in passing yards allowed. And so you have to imagine that even if there were an issue at all in any of the interior corners, that we have a very good situation on our hands in terms of secondary corners and being able to play with each other and do a great job at that. So I think that ultimately our cornerback room could be very good, and the unit that's going to benefit the most from that is our defensive line group. If they're able to be suffocating in the back end, they're going to have a lot of opportunities for coverage sacks, and that's music to the ears of like a Ryan Kerrigan, the Von Miller-esque type of rusher like Javonte John Baptiste. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, you guys hit a lot of the points I was going to say. I'm just, like you said, just going back to like what Mikey was doing in college coming out the slot. I'm just so excited to see what they're going to cook up with him as far as like Deuce said, getting after the passer, blitz packages. We know that he's going to be interchangeable as far as like inside, outside. Jonathan Jones is a guy that's been in this league for a while. I'm sure he's taking notes from him because he's a veteran that's well respected around the league as well. So I'm just excited that Mikey, I think he's going to take another jump, just like we think Jaden's going to take another jump. And I think a lot of people have been saying since the beginning of this offseason that if Marshawn Lattimore is healthy and he can be 70 to 80% of what he was in New Orleans and stay healthy, give us 13, 14 games, something like that, then he's the linchpin and kind of the X factor for this defense going from good to maybe even great. And Dan Quinn and Joe Witt, they rely on turnovers. So, like you said, if they can get these coverage sacks, if Trey Amos can keep doing what he's doing, he's the perfect Dan Quinn type of corner, the long, rangy, speedy, physical type of corner. If they can put it together, get the communication together, and this defense can play as one and gel, I think that we're going to have a lot of turnovers, which means more opportunities for Jaden Daniels, more points on the board. And it all goes together because now you got guys like Von Miller coming off the edge when we're up by a score or two. They can just pin their ear back and go get after the passer. So, Marshawn Lattimore, Amos, and Mikey, Noah Jones, all them, if they can, they're kind of the linchpin of this defense as far as like they're going to be the ones that determine if this defense is going to be good or great.
I'm with you. And Deuce, DMV cash out, is that the cash from Spaces? It is. Whose idea was that to put up the Terry McLaurin extension? You didn't talk to him about
Uh,
that? No, I felt bad for him when I saw that. I didn't realize it was him when I quote tweeted it, and after the fact, I was like, "Oh, poor Cash." But, Deuce, this next question is from Tony Franchise on Twitter. Thank you, Tony. Now that camp has started, what position still gives you some concern with this team?
mm, mm. Um, concern. That's a that's a tough one for me. Cause like, and I say that because, and we know like adding Von Miller, he's a 30% snap cut percentage guy, right? He's not going to have that much of an impact
Right.
throughout the entirety of a game. But I think I think especially me, like kind of underestimate what Frankie Louvu can do and what he's been doing since camp and to training camp and OTAs that he's been working the positional drills with the edge rushers. He's been standing behind practices working with Ryan Kerrigan, and he's not working with Ryan Kerrigan to play linebacker, right? So obviously, it seems like he's gonna have a lot of opportunities to rush the passer, and I think they're gonna put him in that role to up and down the line of scrimmage, so similar to what we see down south from that other guy. But as far as like concern, I don't think I'm really concerned with any position in that sense. But I the closest thing to it will be the safety room, right? I think he's got better every year. The strong safety with Will Harris, when we look at the number, like we did this in the offseason on the draft show, like when we looked at Will Harris, we kind of looked at, oh yeah, he's a little more like he could do a little bit more than what Chen can do, right? But Chen is obviously younger, so I just wonder what that interaction is gonna look like. So close to concern I have is the safeties in that depth because I'm just not sure what Will Harris is going to be. And then they
Um,
had Tyler Lawrence at linebacker last week, so I don't know what's going on with him and Hampton. So I don't know.
Yeah, which is funny because we talked about early in this offseason, Deuce, like what's going to go on with To, meaning Tyler Owens, just because of how we stand out on special teams. Are we going to see him possibly have that ability to help out with strong safety? For me personally, if there's any concern that I have, which ultimately I'm kind of like Deuce, where I'm not overly concerned a lot about this football team at this point. I think the offensive line is a big one, but I'll be honest with you, it's wide receiver in the sense of having the continuity for Jaden Daniels and what's going to go on with Terry McLaurin. That's where ultimately my concern is. It's not because of the concern of the players that they have. It's about getting everybody on board, having the continuity, having the cohesion going into week one so we don't start out slow like we did last year in the sense of the Giants game, not having a touchdown scored in that game, right? Losing against the Bucks week one, and Jaden having to run for his life in order to have somewhat of a sustainable form of offense. And so, if I'm going to say anything, at this point, because they signed Von Miller, they added that to the edge group. I think that answered a lot of calls for everybody. But for me personally, I'd have to go with the wide receivers.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go with another pass catching group, and that is the tight end group, which obviously we know Zach Ertz, if he can stay healthy, give us another 16, 17 games like he did last year, then obviously he's going to be the number one guy, and we're going to be good in that room because we know what Zach Ertz, the connection he has with Jaden, is already off the charts, and it's only going to get better going into year two. But if he goes down, like we were talking about with Ben earlier, do we really know that? Like obviously we have John Bates, and still going to be good in the run game, and we know that he can get a little bit sneaky in the passing game, but he's not going to give you like a 60, 70 catch, 80 catch season like Zach Ertz is going to give you. And we know that he's not the most like athletic type of Jordan Reed or even like a Zach Ertz type of tight end, but he'll give you a quick 5, 6, 7, 8 yard catch, get you a couple yards and go down and get tackled. But do we have confidence and do we know that if Zach Ertz does go down or gets nicked up, banged up, is Ben Standig going to be ready to go? Is he going to be able to step in? Is he going to be able to uh, learn the offense not really learn the offense, but be able to be comfortable on the offense on the field and get more playing time? So Yeah, that would be like you said, it's not really like a big concern, but and obviously NFL is a physical game, and guys are going to get nicked up and banged up. But yeah, if Zach Ertz happens to be one of those guys that gets nicked up and banged up, I would say the tight end room has a big question mark on it because now you're just down to a guy like John Bates. I think Colson Yankoff might probably be on the practice squad again, and Ben Sinnott, which are three unproven, really like unproven guys as far as NFL tight end room goes.
Now, this next question from the Discord, Tim Towner. Hall, I'll go back to you. Tim's question is, who signs first, Terry McLaurin or Micah Parsons?
That's a good one. Well, we know Dallas, they like to go all the way up to like the last minute, like a week before the season, a couple days before the season actually kicks off. Um, I would hope that Terry's deal doesn't go that long because that would be like ridiculous. So I'll say Terry, but like Ben was talking about, it wouldn't surprise me that we get to that second or third preseason game and Terry's still not signed, and now we're all looking at each other like, what's going on? But I will say Terry just because we know how Jerry Jones gets down. He wants to drag it out as long as possible, keep his team in the headlines, and then Micah will sign a couple days before they kick off.
I'm not really sure. I'm not really too concerned about Minka. I do hope that Terry does get signed relatively soon, just so he can get back out there, get to work. I'm serious about the concern about the cohesion. Everyone can laugh it off, and they can say, look what they did last season. The cohesion is there. It's fine."
It wasn't in the beginning. It
It's
wasn't
easy to
until
say
got
that now. It's easy
a
to
couple
say that
games
when they're
in
not
they finally got the cohesion.
right. And that's my whole point is you can easy just push that away. Say, look, we're not worried about that. We know what they did last year. That's great. But when you're getting pressed at the line at the on man up, how are you going to respond? Are you going to be on the same page at that point? You could sit here and say it's going to be easy and fine, but I think that we're messing possibly things up by allowing him to continue not being able to be out there. Especially with this secondary being as good as it is, as much as it's being hopped up to be, then we might as well have Terry out there so that could be the best game experience possible before we head into the year. Of course, we have joint training camp coming up, but just saying, if our secondary unit is that good right now, it'd be a really good time to be able to test that out. What about you, Deuce?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Terry. I think Jerry. I think he likes the antics. They just paid Ferguson. They extended the tight end
Dude,
today.
are you serious?
So, well, what happened?
Nothing. Just nothing. It's gross. Just these damn flies, dude.
Okay. Okay.
Dude, they're like fighting behind my ear. I'm like, go away, man.
Holy moly, donut shop. All right. So like, if you like they just paid they extended Ferguson today, so that keeps it in the for another couple weeks. So I definitely think they're going to pay Michael before the year starts. I think we get something done with Terry before that, and I'm not too concerned about like the cohe. I think Dan said it and Jaden like Terry. You're not going to have to worry about him coming into camp overweight or sluggish, right? You're not going to have to worry about any of that. He's there now, so he sees the installs, right? So he's there with the new installs and those different types of things. And in practice, like you might get some reps that we see, but I still don't think that they're going 100%. Like I never think the players go 100% at camp. I think the joint practices it matters more than preseason games.
Yeah.
Because you can get a guy like I don't know, like somebody on the sixth corner will have an opportunity to check like Stephon Diggs, which he won't get that opportunity in the preseason game. So I think that matters more and being able to see other guys out there. But definitely for like those instances, you want to see Terry against Marshawn, Terry against Amos, and those type of guys. So I'm definitely excited to see that. I don't think it is like Terry don't have to play in the preseason games. You know
No,
what I
heck
mean?
no.
So, yeah.
Absolutely agree with you. Last one that we have, boys. Hall, I'll go with you first. This is from Tim Towner. Very disappointed in all players who hold out. I mean, you have a multi-year contract for millions of dollars. Wouldn't you think that legally the team should have some way to enforce it? Period. And it should be a part of the CBA with the NFLPA. It already has constraints that keep high school players from being draft eligible until at least 3 years after they get out of high school. They should have something similar for this case. I think if a player holds out even for a day, his pay should be suspended until he shows up, and his contract should be extended for 1 year. So, Do you think the players should be prohibited from holding out?
No, I don't think so. And they got stuff in the CBA. That's why they're getting fined $50,000 a day.
Right.
So I mean, look, I heard people calling in 106 and like stuff throughout the week talking about this too, where they're trying to compare their jobs. So like, well, if I signed a contract, I can't hold out and try to negotiate with 1 year left on my deal. I can't go to my boss and negotiate. Yeah, because you work a 9 to 5. You're not an NFL player. That's what NFL players do. Any big time NFL player that has 1 year left on his deal and is getting like underpaid, if you want to call it, as far as like, if you go down the list of what his AAV right now compared to what his output is on the field and guys above him, no NFL big time player or even a mid level player for that point is going to go out there and risk it without some type of like multi-year type of security. So like, yeah, it sucks, and you would want the guys out there, and this is why they have the hold in now, because they found the workaround to like, all right, I don't got to get fined $50,000 or more because I'm here. I'm just not going to do the work. I'll do the classroom work, but I'm not going to go on the field. But yeah, this is what the star players and the superstar players in the NFL do. They have the leverage to be like, hey, I'm getting underpaid for what my value brings to the field. I got 1 year left on my deal. Let's talk about another deal. So it just is what it is at this point, and maybe it changes down the line. I don't see it changing because this is really the only leverage that the players have as far as like the owners go. Because again, you're already under contract still, so it's not like you can just hold out and you got to play on a certain amount of games to accrue a season. So this is the only leverage they have. So I don't have a grudge with them doing what they do to get their money.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also wanted to say you can't really I can't compare construction to what Terry McLaurin is doing in the NFL. They're two completely different things. One is based on entertainment, and one is based on building. So like it's very like if you could compare it, you could say it's like to an actor for Terry McLaurin. Well, for Terry McLaurin, just like any big name star actor, if they don't show up, the movie's not going on. They're not being able to record it. They don't have another star to pick up right away to say, yeah, come play. So just like a music artist, you know how many music artists say that their concert is going to start at this point in time. Everyone shows up and then they're pissed because they're late. Well, guess what? I'm the show. I'm the one showing up when I want to show up. You're here to see me. And it's almost sort of like that. I understand what Tim Towner is ultimately saying, and that if you sign a contract, you should be there to do it. But in the same breath, this is what happens to good teams that are successful. Mm-hmm. When they perform well and they perform at a high level, they want to be paid at a high level. I'm not disappointed. I am just surprised at what Terry McLaurin is requesting after that 1 year. I understand where he wants to be talked about it at a high level, but I know Terry is a faithful man. It doesn't matter what people say about you. It only matters about what one person thinks about you, and that is God. And I would hope that Terry views himself in that sort of way. I know he talked about wanting the respect of being around that top 5 wide receiver area, but ultimately, Terry, like, I'm not going to speak for him. I don't know him, obviously. I just know as a faithful man that surprised me a little bit. But look, I want him to get what he deserves. I'm not going to belittle him or judge him for not being there and everything. I'm just disappointed all around that nothing could really come into fruition, because what ultimately is what matters at the end of the day is that we win football games and we do better than we did last year. And that's all I'm focused on. And if Terry's not in the equation of being able to help out early on, I think that is a detriment to the future success of this football team at the end of the day. Anything you want to add to that, Deuce?
Yeah, I mean, and I agree. And I think the only way you could kind of compare the situations is when it comes to you as a person, right? Like what I've done, what my career is, if I've made a whole lot of money doing this, right? And then when it's time to get a new contract, I could say, hey, look, I am the top whatever in the world at this, and I think I should be getting paid like this. I don't think it has anything to do with like greed or anything like that. It's just knowing your worth and being in a position to request your worth, right? Because I've already established that. Like I can go month to month while we sit up here and debate how much money I should be getting paid. Right. But everyone is not in that in that position to be able to do that. So of course they would say, you know what, I'm just going to take it because I have to be able to survive tomorrow. But Terry McLaurin's in a position where he can just give away $800,000 and still be able to go to Fuji tomorrow. Right? So like it's that's where the differences is, where we have to be careful in comparing our day to day and to these athletes and entertainers.
Yeah, and obviously two very, very, regardless of each other, it's very, very different than the NFL, which is absolutely what everyone is looking to be able to get into, even Disney, and trying to acquire. Obviously, ESPN right now is trying to acquire NFL Network, NFL Red Zone. I'm hoping that that is not the case. I saw what Disney did to the Star Wars, and as much as that was something that I really disliked, I don't want to see the same thing happen to Red Zone. Okay, like
imagine Pat McAfee or Stephen A. Smith on Red Zone all day.
It'd be brutal, absolutely brutal, preposterous. I couldn't handle it. But before we get out of here, boys, Deuce, if you just like to plug your shows, your social media handle, just in case anybody watching, which is most likely not the case. But if there is anybody watching, I would love to be able to come follow you, sir. Where would they find you at?
Just Red Zone in the Lab on all platforms.
I can't thank you enough for doing that. I know you've had a long day. You were at training camp earlier. You did your own show before this, and then you hopped on to join us. I wish Reed could have been here as well, but we'll figure out what his excuse was probably tomorrow at some point. All right, everybody. If you've made it this far, you're a frickin' champion. I can't thank you guys enough. We love you guys. I wanted to do this one streaming just in case anybody had any questions, just based on what Rob said last week and being able to answer questions people had. So it sucks he wasn't here for this one. Would love to be able to interact with you guys. But if you made it this far, you're a frickin' champion. Love you guys. God bless you. Glory be to God. And I'm really happy to be where I am right now, blessed with this show and these awesome guys and anybody watching. It has been a lot of fun being able to do so. But I'm Kyle.
I'm Whole.
I'm Deuce.
And we'll see you guys again this week, maybe during the week or possibly on Sunday next week. We'll see you then. Washington football. Woo!
Peace.
What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video.